Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here with the System Simplified podcast, where we interview top entrepreneurs, founders, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And this podcast is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group. At Business Success Consulting Group, we create custom processes and tailor-made business systems so businesses can thrive and grow. All right, so I am very excited to introduce today's guest, Darragh Fitzpatrick, and he is the co-owner and executive vice president of the Tabush Group, which is a managed IT and cloud services provider. And the reason, well, first of all, hello, Darragh.
Hi, Adi. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. And it's great to have you on this podcast because we're going to discuss today, of course, our favorite topic of systematizing a business, which you have done so well. And you have a great story about scaling a business and making it successful due to systematization and vision and wanting to scale it, etc. And also, we're going to talk about your services, the unique services of your company that helps businesses work remotely, right? Or work more in more than one location. Mm-hmm. And, you had that vision long before COVID, but now the pandemic accelerated the need for it. So we're going to talk about that, about having that vision ahead of time and how you had to change, adapt, or move faster because of it, and what solutions you're actually giving to businesses that are now facing with this hybrid concept, not necessarily having to go back to what it was before, but it's a new future of what the future workforce is going to look like, right?
Mm-hmm. Sounds good to me.
Excellent. So this is really exciting topics. So first of all, let's start with a little bit more of an introduction. So tell us a little bit more about you, your career, and how did you end up where you're at right now?
So as you can tell from my accent, I wasn't born in the US. I was born in Limerick, Ireland. I studied computer science. I went to school in 1990. I transferred for my final year of my computer science degree to London. For many, many reasons, all good. I spent 7 years in London. That's where I entered into the small business world, and I took a conscious decision to actually work in the small business world and gain experience at working close to people that were making the key decisions in the business. Basically, people that were entrepreneurial, that were running their businesses, building their businesses, scaling their businesses, because I found that exciting that I could be the IT person that latched onto this and helped be part of that entrepreneurial process. I moved to the United States in the early 2000s. I met my current partner in 2003. We started working with each other in 2005, and we've been partners ever since. And so we've grown the Tabush Group together. My business partner's name is Morris Tabush. He founded the Tabush Group in 2001, June 2001. So he was already 4 years in business by the time I came in to work with him. And I had a previous partnership that we had folded out of, and that's when I folded in with Morris.
That's great. And tell us a little bit about the growth of the company. So when you started in 2005, where were you and where are you now?
So in 2005, Morris and I got together. The company was probably 8 to 10, probably 8 staff. We were the typical IT consultants at that time. Everybody in the company was doing some sort of tech work or IT work. Morris and I probably more limited than everybody else. We were really swapping our professional expertise for IT, for dollars at that point. So everything was billable per hour. As we moved forward through 2009 and 10, we had grown a fair amount, but the problem was we had grown in a very type of unstructured manner. Billing per hour type of led to that a little bit in terms of not being able to invest back into the business, because one month you're making a lot of money, the next month you may not be. And so we became a much more structured company from 10 on, I would say 2010. We became what would be called now a managed service provider. It was something that started happening in our industry. Instead of going from out per hour, you went to fixed fee. You became more focused. You systematized, which is what you obviously do yourself, and we're here to talk about today. That really, there's a number of things that helped us then grow through the next 10 years. And then I think what really, the next big change in the firm was in 2016 when we launched our own, what we would call a desktop as a service cloud platform, or an easier way to describe it is a remote workplace platform called Boxtop. That's the type of change the trajectory of our firm again, because that's our cloud, our intellectual property that we've built, designed, and now support for approximately 1,300 users now, should be closer to 1,500. 1,600 by the end of the year, and double within the next 2 years.
Wow. Okay. That's really, we're going to talk about that, but that's great growth, and so before we continue, and I want to ask you about that particular platform, I want to give a shout out to Louis Schiff from the Birthing of Giants, because he's the one who introduced us. And so I would definitely encourage our listeners to check out the Birthing of Giants. And he has a great book that he wrote. He actually wrote several books. And I encourage you to go and download it and read it, because it is all about growing companies, about mindset, about how to be more successful, etc. Right? Louis, you interviewed by Louis. You are part of that program. So definitely.
Yeah, I know Louis very well. I've known him many years now, before he had the Birthing of Giants program. I would highly encourage everyone to look it up and get involved. I can't speak highly enough of the people that he puts together, the committee that he has in the organization, and the members. And the best way to improve your business is to sit down with people that are doing the same thing as you, and even better, that have done it already. And I couldn't speak highly enough, or I could tell you so many stories about what I've learned just sitting in the room each time we get together.
Absolutely. Okay, good. So definitely the link is going to be in the notes of the podcast. So check it out. All right, Darragh. So let's talk about your platform. That's really intriguing, and I'm sure our listeners want to hear about it. So tell me what it is, and what does it do?
So everybody knows that businesses like the cloud because it provides all the complex protections you need without the need to invest in the technology that provides those protections, right? So we can take your email system, which everybody does now, and put it into Office 365. Microsoft invests all the dollars, takes all the risks, puts all the redundancies in place to keep that system up and running. So it's highly productive for all of us that use Office 365. So as businesses became more dependent on IT, which every year that's happened more and more and more. It's become more intrinsic in the businesses. Complexity for smaller firms, which is who we work with. We really focus on firms less than 100 staff. They need to spend a lot more dollars, and IT became a lot more complex and a lot more expensive. So how do you retract that, but still reduce that, but still provide the productivity, security, scalability that the small business needs? You do that by leveraging cloud. So instead of taking one system, desktop as a service, which is a type of cloud, which allows us to take every piece of your IT. So all your servers and applications and data and your PC itself, and put them all in the cloud. So now when you want to work, you log into our Boxtop cloud. It presents you with a Windows 10, a Microsoft Windows 10 desktop, and all your applications and file shares and your printers and scanners, the exact same thing you have at your network on premise, and makes that available to you from anywhere securely, in a familiar way. So no matter where you are, what device you work on, you're always connecting to the same Windows 10 desktop. So that's simply what Boxtop does. So it encapsulates all the benefits of clouds and wraps it around all your IT instead of one piece.
Oh, wow. And then it means that if something goes wrong, then there is somebody to take care of it, right? So right. It always works. So basically what I'm hearing is that you're providing an ability to log in every single time to your workspace and guarantee that it's going to work, right? Or there is somebody else, somebody will take care of it so it works.
Yeah, and what we type of wanted, because we focus on small businesses, we feel like what a small business owner wants is a responsible, dedicated team. So one, what people might call partner or vendor, to look after IT as a whole. So instead of somebody saying, I'm building you a cloud platform in Amazon, then I'm going to be the person that you look to support your people. If something breaks in the cloud, we'll call Amazon for you. We said, no, let's consolidate it together. So we built our own cloud. So we designed and built our cloud. We run Boxtop on that. The small business owner knows if they have an issue, the people that design and build the platform that you're running on are the same people that are supporting you. Your IT team basically are the same people that built and designed the platform. So it just means that we can perform a true platform, a true partnership from the use of the Boxtop platform through to our support team, through to our strategic advisors like our virtual CTOs, to our client. And that really does two great things. It provides a solid partner for the small business owner who needs the productivity but needs the advice and the support. But it also produces a really redundant, productive IT system with business continuity, with backup, with audited security and compliance, all inbuilt for one fee. So there is no, I need to pay this person A, B, and C different people for X, Y, and Z services. It's all one company, one service, secure, backed up, business continuity, inherit.
That's wonderful. That is definitely a system because we're talking about systems. So every business has to have systems. Now they have to have systems for HR. They have to have systems for sales, for marketing, for operations, but they definitely have to have systems for IT. And your solution that you're providing is providing that system that is already proven, that is already well thought of, that has all the components. And then all you need to do is plug in and continue working while you have this working IT system. I mean, from the viewpoint of the business owner.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're obviously, you deliver and create process for companies all the time. So I think the key thing to any system is it's got to provide simplicity. It's got to eradicate the complex and simplify things. Like I always say that complexity is the enemy of productivity and simplicity is its friend. And Boxtop looks at a very complex growing IT need for small businesses and says we can simplify all of that complexity, provide you more functionality, more redundancy, more productivity, easy access from anywhere without increasing the need for you to be involved. You get all the results you need with less involvement, which you say to any person that wants to scale a business, they need to focus on not what operates the business, but what the idea is to move that operation forward. And so that's what Boxtop helps do. It provides the results without the needing to get into the nitty and gritty.
That's great. And that's what a good system should do. It's all about a good system provides the ability to scale. It also provides consistency. It provides reliability. It provides security, really. And it seems like that's exactly what you are providing there. So give an example of an ideal a usual, I don't know if usual, but basically like a client of yours that is a representative of a client that you work with, and give us the industry. What was the problem they were trying to solve and how it got solved with the platform now that they're on the platform?
Yeah, so there'll be tons of examples, but being that our new mission is to be the best known remote workspace IT cloud services firm in the legal industry, I'm going to focus on a law firm. So one that quickly comes to mind because the type of checks all the boxes you were speaking to. So it's a law firm in New York that it's a workers' compensation and personal liability law firm. It's approximately 90 staff there and thereabouts, so about 50 attorneys and there are 60 attorneys, I think, something along those lines. They were working with certain entities that have New York State affiliation from a governance standpoint. And so therefore, they had to meet very particular cyber security compliance needs dictated by what's called the New York State Insurance Fund, which is part of the New York State government, right? They were in a position where they had good IT, but it was coming to the end of its life. And they either had to decide we're going to have to build very complex systems to allow for certain parts of their people to work remotely, the remainder work in the office, meet all these really heavy critical security needs, provide better productivity because the systems have been older, and then pay for all the ratification and protections around that. So that was becoming of something that they knew let's just say the COO, our director of operations that we were dealing with, Michael, he knew that, wow, that's going to be a lot of time for me. Understanding how to put all this together with the IT team. So we were introduced to them through a common person that one of the people we worked with also worked with them in a capacity. And we went through and explained what I've already explained and why the benefits of Boxtop are. And the real key thing for them was we onboarded them, I think, around October 2018. Around that time. And then in December, they had the first ratification from the New York State Insurance Fund. Michael made the introduction to my team. They talked to the New York State Insurance Fund cyber people. We went through the process. And let's just say there's 100 different checkboxes. 99 were checked. And then the law firm, Michael and I and my team did one small test, checked the box, and they were ratified straight away. And this was to the point where if they could not meet those needs, they could not continue to do this work. And this was obviously a massive part of their business. And that's been an annual thing. So instead of now them spending $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on auditing and ratification of compliance, we just have a phone call once a year. And I think they may have to do one test every year. That one checkbox they have to do every year, which is a couple of $1,000s. So I'm not saying everything's a cost saving. It's not even the dollars that's important. It's reducing the complexity of such a big audit to one thing. It's time, because time is the thing that we all don't have enough of, right? So Michael, if you asked him, I'm sure beyond the remote access, beyond the familiarity, that's such a big deal. That goes from weeks of work for him to a few hours work.
That's incredible. What an incredible story. And I'm sure it will resonate with our listeners. I mean, who doesn't need more time? I mean, if we had more time and more attention to do the things that really matter, as opposed to going into all these complexities, I mean, that's like a no-brainer. So that's a great story.
Yeah. And I'm sure this is what you do too, right, Addy? I mean, the purpose of you being involved with businesses is, at the end of the day, it's simplifying to reduce 12 hours for something to 2 hours or 1 hour.
Absolutely. You know, my new thing is like thinking, listening to things that only take 10 minutes, because, you know, if you actually have 12 things in a day that only take 10 minutes, that's 120 minutes. That's 2 hours that you can regain in a day. If
Right.
you do it 4 days a week, then that's the fifth day that you want to do a flex day or take it off, right?
Right.
So it's true. It's like, well, you know, it's kind of like, oh, that doesn't take us long. Well, yeah, but really measure. You know, my background is industrial engineering. Time study is a big thing for me. So, you know, if you study the time that you spend on different tasks, you're going to find those lost minutes that you can actually use in order to build your business. Like you were saying before, like when you were actually doing exchanging time for money, you weren't able to grow because it's always like 1 month like that, 1 month like that, or you always have to chase that time and time and time. But when you actually go into a model or a system that is more systematized, right, more productive, then you can gain the time to think about the future.
Right. If you're being paid for every hour, then every hour is chased and counts. So you're not necessarily looking to how you can be more effective in performing and carrying out those hours, especially in our type of business where we were dealing with support. So it was reactive consistently, right? It was somebody calling us. It's not like it was a project where somebody was saying, although we did some of that with projects, you can manage them better. You can put in tools to help you, of course. But at that time, we were just, every call counted. So therefore, just answer the call and solve the problem as fast as possible and log that time somewhere. That was about the only system we had really at that time, was a place to create a ticket and enter time against it, because that was the most important thing in the business, because that's what generated all the dollars.
Absolutely. So if we have listeners right now that have maybe an IT service, they're IT service provider, or they are in another industry that is also, at the point where you were in 2005, what advice would you give them? Kind of like, what advice would you give yourself if you can go back to 2005, what would you say to yourself?
That's a really good question. I think one of the words I always go back to when I think about the change we made in 2008, 9, 10, 11, and 12, when we really put a good platform for growth in the business, was we started to become more focused. Okay. In lots of different ways. So more focused on what is it we do best. We could do everything, and we could hire lots of people with lots of different skill sets, but what is it that we do best, and what is it we want to double down on? So what do we want to double down and grow on? Because the more things you're doing, the harder it is to scale, because you're consistently being dragged into different facets of different areas, and therefore you're consistently chasing different types of business. So that would be one area. The second area would focus is, who do we want to work with? There's thousands of different types of businesses out there, but if you're chasing them all, or you're trying to chase is a bad word, but if you're looking to work with them all, it's going to be harder to focus your energy on who you should be speaking to. If you're focusing on a certain set or type of business, you're going to accelerate your growth better. And it's not only all about growth, that focus now passes to your team. The more different types of businesses you're working with, the more array of skill sets that your team have to understand, especially in an IT practice, because there's different types of applications for different types of businesses. And then there's different type of people and cultures. And like we all know, whether it's IT or your business or whatever business it is, you have to be able to relate to the people that you're supporting or working with. And just different types of business and industries have different types of cultures. So that would be another area of focus. And then lastly, which type of relates to the conversation you have, if you're being more focused in these areas, so you know what you're doing, how you're doing it, and who you're doing it for, you can now step back and say, well, how do I become more efficient at driving that forward? And I think really in 2009, that's what we started doing. And we've type of constantly done that now ever since. We're never, and we've got better at it, but we have lots to do still.
For sure. So it's focus and simplicity. Those are the two key words that I took from this conversation so far. But they align, because if you're too complex and all over the place, you're not focused, right? So if you start focusing on something, things become simpler. So what drove you to stop doing what you were doing, like business as usual, continuing to trade time for money? What was the change? Like, what got you to actually decide, okay, that's it, we're going to change? Even if it wasn't, maybe it was a gradual change, maybe it wasn't like all at the same, like just happen overnight, but something, what was the trigger?
I think there was a myriad of different things that led to this decision, but I think purely exhaustion, really. Just, it was, we were always good at what we did. Well, we felt we were. Of course, certain people, we lost certain clients and certain things because we made mistakes, but that's just the nature of things. But I think it was sheer exhaustion of consistently being like what I would call the IT paramedic, like consistently running around resuscitating people's systems. It felt like, of course we weren't because we were doing a better job, but it felt like there was too many emergencies, and there was too many emergencies because we weren't systemizing and becoming more efficient and being proactive. And of course, to be proactive, you have to have systems in place because you've got to be able to manage things in a way that you can be preventative in our business. And you have to have the ability to look at information better about your business. And I think we also realized that we needed to have the ability to systematize our service delivery model. Right. So how are we going to deliver IT services to people? Because that way we'll be able to say, we're going to do A, B, and C. And for A, B, and C, we're going to call that plan one. And plan one costs you X amount of thousands of dollars a month, or X amount of dollars a month. And we realized that was necessary because we had to be able to invest back in our people. So we had to understand from a business standpoint what, I wouldn't say we were looking at budgets at that point in time, but we were looking at, we're making X amount of money. If we fix the fees, at least we know if we have 40 clients at $1,000, that's $40,000 that we're making per month. That'll allow us to pay a wage bill of X, office of X, invest in resources of, all these different things. Before, that was a lot harder when we weren't 100% sure, when we were getting what we would now call non-recurring revenue, when spikes in the revenue every month. So I think that there was a couple of things, but then, they were the main things that I would think. So exhaustion, the need to invest in better people and systems and support tools for our people, and then the realization that we couldn't grow the way we were going.
Right. Yeah. And, I interview a lot of entrepreneurs and founders, and that is the common denominator, is like something they had a realization that they can't continue the way they were going, right? Because they won't be able to expand and scale that way. Mm-hmm. So something else needs to happen. And what you just told us definitely strengthens that theory, is that you have something going on. You are getting to a point where you can't continue like that because you're basically at the max capacity. You're exhausted and you're not basically utilizing your full potential, right? So that way, deciding to scale, deciding to systematize allows you to expand.
Yeah, and one thing I should add, it wasn't like myself and my partner Morris were geniuses and decided to do this all of a sudden. It was gradual, and one of the things that happened around us was at that time, as I said, we would have called ourselves like IT consultants. That's what we would have called the firm. It was Tabush Consulting Group, because that's what we figured we were, an IT consultancy group. In the industry itself, which had obviously grown immensely, that type of industry had grown immensely in the previous 15 years, right? Because more businesses were using technology, more small businesses specifically, and we'd had the internet boom, and then we had the connectivity boom, and then just the starting of leveraging the internet properly for applications. As that happened, people came into the industry, from other areas and started building systems that we saw could make us better. So in other words, the industry that we were in became a little more structured by people building management platforms, for instance, for it. And that made us go, wait a second. And that terminology then invoked the managed service provider type of industry. So we went from being an IT consultancy industry to being a managed service provider now.
Right. Yeah, good.
We grabbed onto that quick.
Yes. And that's good.
Yes,
and that's part of it. It's the adaptability.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So with that, what is the future like? Where are you going? What are your plans for the future?
So, we launched Boxtop, which is, as I said, the remote workplace solution. We launched that in 2016. Obviously, the company, the growth prior to COVID, Boxtop was, by far our biggest growing service, but COVID has just ramped that up even more, because the need and the story of why Boxtop is relevant to your law firm makes a lot more sense post-COVID, or a lot more immediate sense. The story resonates with people. What happens if your business needs to work outside the office tomorrow? Pre-COVID, that will never happen. It'll never happen to me, because that could only happen previously if a fire in your building occurred, or you had a power outage for 6 months, or things of that nature. And now it's relevant because, we had the pandemic, which was the thing that was never going to happen. So something else is going to happen that we all think is never going to happen, and it's going to be the same effect. So that story of why Boxtop is very useful, and why the cloud is the way small businesses should be focusing on building their IT. So growth within Boxtop, the way we see ourselves as a firm is always that we're problem solvers. Myself and Morris, we've many things in common, and we're different in great ways, which is a great partnership. I love them to bits. And we're problem solvers at heart. So right now, how we're solving people's problems is taking them into the cloud, because that simplifies their IT and gives them the ability to scale securely and effectively. It allows for people to work from anywhere. And one of the things we want to do now is, instead of it just being a desktop as a service platform, which is the type of cloud, it's called DaaS, we want to make Boxtop the place where your business lives from an IT perspective. So we're building out a lot more functionality into Boxtop that's relevant to the legal industry, or is going to be relevant to the legal industry. So we're looking ahead at what we can do. From simple things like Teams became a much more relevant and required tool in a remote workspace, right? So, or in a remote environment. So therefore, in other words, standardizing and pre-building out how Teams is going to be rolled out in Boxtop for the firms that use it. So therefore, when they say we want to use Teams, we can say, roll it out. This is how it's going to happen. Here's a training company that you can utilize that will help train you. So it's 1, 2, 3. Nice and easy. We have roundtables with our clients, asking them, listen, you tell us what you would like to see in Boxtop. So security is a constant thing. So we have a security committee that looks at what I would say the risks to the legal industry and the other professional services industries that we work in, but particularly the legal industry. So therefore, we're continually being practical about putting in place the necessary security in Boxtop that is relevant to these small firms who have insurance companies, or they have other institutional partners, our clients saying, if you can't meet the security, you can't work with us anymore. That's a scary thing for a business owner. So I think the evolution as Boxtop as a solution is going to be, it is a desktop as a service platform, but it's going to be an ecosystem in the cloud that your business can actually operate from. And that can mean lots of different things. And then what our business owners are going to come to us where we can provide as technology people. We can ingest what they're requesting and then translate that into new IT solutions that solves real problems for the business. And when I say real problems, I mean things that move the needle in the business.
Sure.
That's what IT should be doing. That's the great thing about Boxtop, actually, which I haven't said is, I've never walked into a managing partner or an owner of a small business and said, look at those new PCs and servers, cost you 100,000. Isn't that fantastic? No, and I've never gotten a high five back going, brilliant, Darragh. Thank you so much. Congratulate your team. Because it's just $100,000 of hardware that is not changing the business. No one's working faster. It was just a necessary evil to operate necessarily. Like it's just, I buy computers, I buy servers. That means every 3 to 5 years, I have to upgrade them all. If I didn't have to do that, if the industry didn't make that happen, or 7 years for servers, I wouldn't, if I could magically make those boxes work forever, I would. And what Boxtop takes away the need for you to have that upgrade process. You don't need computers or servers anymore. You just live in this system. And now you can focus on integrating applications, making data more available to be visible in your organization. Have your IT people converse with the administrative staff that have been doing, certain things the same way for 10 years, and automating, putting in better applications to make that more efficient. So,
wow. Darragh, that's amazing future ahead of us. And I love it. It's basically, that's the beauty of being able to have a fractional, what whatever the profession is, like in your case, is like really having a top-notch CTO for a small business cannot afford or does not need a full-time CTO. But because you're so laser precise, like you said, it's very focused, you know what to do. Like that platform knows exactly what solutions to provide. And it's kind of like plug and play, right? Because for the company, they can just log in and do whatever they need to do, but they feel protected, they feel secure, they have all the tools. It's a great solution. And it's really another great example of taking something horrible like the pandemic, but making it in terms of the accelerating the future and what the future would look like anyway. Well, none of us have a crystal ball, so we don't know.
Yeah.
But we can imagine, right, that you probably would have a plan to roll it out maybe by 2028. That will be like the future. But now, well, because of the pandemic, 2021 is here and we are just accelerating everything. And it's also, I think, really a lesson in having a strategy and having a plan and foresight and think ahead, because as you said, you never know what will happen. And we never believe that this will happen, but it happens. So now when something else is being projected, you can't just say, oh, it's never going to happen, right? Because.
Yeah, and that's why one of the things that, I learned by, say, with Lewis Schiff, in Birthing a Giants and Gathering a Giants now is, the more you're in your business, the harder it is to run and grow and scale your business. You have to extract yourself by getting the right people, processes in place. But the reason you need to come out is you have to be able to look at it objectively and take time to strategize. And I think that's one of the things that's why you need good partners. So, your firm, for instance, I'm sure lots of people, when you sit them down and you take them outside of their everyday role and you sit them in the room, it's not that they don't have the ideas to systemize. They just don't have the time or the perceived time to take. So you need that external advisor. And I think that's one of the things we've wrapped into Boxtop is we're a managed service provider, delivering a cloud IT solution, but wrapping that around with all our support and our strategic advice. So every business we work with and partner with gets a virtual CTO, a dedicated person that takes the management and decision makers out at least, once a year, depending on the size, and then multiple times a year, depending on the size of the firm, and sits them down and says, what are we doing? This is all working, but what's next? And gives them ideas. This is what we're seeing in your industry. This is what we see other firms like yours doing. And the people you're talking to will get engaged with that. An advisory in any area is hugely important to instigate thought. And then, like I'm sure you do, you take all the thoughts, put them together and deliver a solution. And your solution is a process or a system. Absolutely.
That's exactly right. And that's where it saves the time. And you're basically buying the expertise. You can go and learn. You might be very intelligent and you can spend time learning, but then it's a lot of time that you're spending on learning something that then you're not going to be able to use it again because you just use it for your business, right? And it's experience, so it's never going to be the same level as if you hire a professional. So you hire an IT professional, you have your CTO, they come up with the plan and you can approve, you can talk. It's a collaborative approach, but you have that taken care of. Again, it's those minutes that we are finding that are so valuable. So that way, probably instead of spending hours, days, months, in a couple of hours, done, strategies in, and that you are talking to a professional. So I agree. Yeah. That's really cool. Well, Darragh, it was great having you on this podcast. So informative. I learned a lot. I'm sure our listeners learned a lot. If nothing else, the biggest takeaway for me is keep it simple, which works. You have the tenacity and the ability to execute on your ideas, which is amazing. Whatever impetus, like the exhaustion, the burnout, whatever need for change, but change to something that you're very focused on. And then, of course, your application, which is tremendous. I already think about all these companies that can utilize it because it is the future. It gives you the solution to be able to work remotely. And even if you're going back in person, but then you have to again go remotely, or you're looking at changing in terms of a hybrid solution, some remotely, some not, you would be able to still work as if though you're in the office securely with the security that you need, with no liability, and also be able to plan the future, which I think is wonderful. So thank you so much for all the data, all the great conversation. And lastly, before we end, if our listeners want to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
So my email address is dfitzpatrick@tabush, tabush.com, or else they can go to our website, www.tabush.com. My contact details are on there, and we have a contact page as well. That's probably the easiest way for anyone to reach out to me. And one thing I just want to add was you mentioned the ability to execute on your ideas. I have to say that the reason we're able to do that is the great team of people we have, both our staff and our leadership team, which we didn't talk about, but we actually put in an entire accountability system in the business as well for our leadership team. We meet once a month in a certain way, have a coach, et cetera, et cetera. That's been amazing. But our leadership team really is incredible at the moment in terms of taking information in, formulating ideas, and executing and being accountable to those things as well. I just wanted to let you know it's not just Morris and we've got a great team of people around us.
Absolutely. Thank you for letting me know. The team makes the difference. And I can already see it comes from the top, but including the team is the culture that you have. Probably can do a whole different podcast on your culture and what's important, what's not. And maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll have a follow-up, the sequel. That would be fun. If you want to, let us know in the comments that you would like us to hear the sequel. I mean, I can do probably 10 more podcasts with you, Darragh, and ask you all kind of questions. So
yeah, we actually did a whole exercise with our HR director, Nandita, to type of uncover our core values and mission. And it was an interesting process, I'll tell you. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah.
I bet. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you again for being a guest on my podcast.
Of course. Thank you, Addie.
All right.
And we'll talk soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.